Right, welcome to the podcast, guys. This is the What the Health is Going On podcast, and today we are joined by a very special guest. This is Chris Mcclarence, a mental health and specialist in terms of men's coaching, and he's got such an insightful background and experience in this field, and it's a real opportunity for this platform to have him with us today. So, Chris, pleasure to have you, mate. I'd love for you to just give a bit of insight about who you are, what you do, and what we're going to be talking about today.
Thank you so much, man. So basically, I am a performance coach and mostly work with athletes. And most of the athletes that I work with are normally a little bit on the more excitable side, shall we say, right? So, and this is very much my background. It's coming from more higher adrenaline. And I'm just going to be, like I said, I can charge this up to be like, yeah, it's like hyped up, hot. However, where a lot of this comes from, and it's not a negative thing, and that's the whole point of today's podcast and what I want to put across. It's not a negative thing, but it is essentially elements of dysregulation within the nervous system. That's what's happening. People whose nervous systems are pretty highly fired, and like I said, a lot of the male and masculine. We will be careful with the masculine word, just because I want to add context to that a little bit further on. Is that this kind of like grind hustle culture is sometimes fueling dysregulation within the nervous system, and it's not wrong, it's not bad, but it can lead to it has negatives as well. We're sold the positives, but we often see the destruction that comes with it, and that's very much that fine balance is where I want to kind of investigate a little bit further. And we can look at this from numerous angles. And I know you'll be able to get involved with some of this, Tom, with your background as well. So we can maybe unpack that at deeper levels so that people who are maybe taking a surface level approach can explore with us a little bit deeper, which would be great. Because like I said, there's much more than meets the eye, and a lot of this stuff is sold from an emotional perspective. Like, you can have this, or if you don't do this, this will happen. And we get wrapped up in this surface level bullshit. And there's more to this where there's a deeper level of care needed. And also, it's not just from a care perspective, but there's efficiency as well. So when we're looking at efficiency, if I'm coming from a place of dysregulation, there's much more obstacles and much more barriers to success by not being aware of the things that we're going to talk about today. And just bringing them into the light and letting people just explore some of that might serve some people really, really well, which is what we're trying to get there.
Yeah, I completely agree. There's, like I say, this taboo topic of mental health is everyone needs to have the conversation, but very few seem to do. Now, you'll probably love to dive into a bit about your background and obviously what led you to this point, but do you feel that and I see it, that in terms of groups, women are usually better at opening up in their friendship groups and talking around this topic? It's very kind of nurturing, whereas men, our sort of way to deal with it is kind of escapism a bit, and maybe not opening up, and we'll only do it in certain spaces. It's a bit more around certain people will feel comfortable talking around mental health, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start there then, because I think that's a perfect place to start, because it's a very, rather than getting into the weeds, we can come through this entry point of which it's helpful for me when I'm used to being down there. So yes, this is really good. It's a really good example. And what I want to put on this, in my opinion, is that neither's right or wrong. Neither's right or wrong. And what we tend to find is, I'm going to use, instead of using men and women, I'd like to shift this across the masculine and feminine.
Yeah.
So to give a little bit of context, we are all both. Yeah. So we all contain masculine energy and we all contain feminine energy. To what degree varies person to person, and obviously in relation to the sex of the person, it heavily leans, towards the bias of the person's sex. So let's all say, like, for example, I could often kind of we could leave a lot of feminine energy in a room, and it will flow up and down all over the place, explore everything, pick things up, have no kind of real order. And might I say, when we look at some of the women's groups, that is very much how they operate, and that's not us. That's not me. I love it. And I said I love both sides of that aspect. It's just I'm amused because we can leave this here and again. The lads would be like, "Are they still fucking there? Like what? Like what? Like what? Like what's going on?" Whereas what would happen is a lot of the time, if you left a group of men in a room and checked in on them maybe 4 hours later, they're probably not going to be there. They'll have went out somewhere doing something. Because this is very much what masculine energy does. It tends to go A to B to C to D, so it's structure. So we'll see, and I think one of the good things, a good example of this might be, we've seen a few or spoke to a few men's groups where they go on hikes or walks.
Yeah.
They go out to achieve things. We're going to get this certain checkpoints, so they'll plan their route. And what you'll find is, as the lads are moving through these checkpoints from place to place, a lot of very deep interaction is taken at those places. So they will do things en route because it's got place, it's got purpose. And that's not to say that the feminine or the female side hasn't got purpose. It's just saying that they can make purpose. Feminine energy is creative. It will build purpose out of pretty much nothing. It's fantastic. Whereas masculine energy needs to kind of be task orientated, and when they're on task, that creates a bonding experience, and the bonds that are built there create the safety within the nervous system and the familiarity as they're tracking, they're tracking through this task. That they can then interact, and sharing occurs with elements of nervous system regulation because we're involved in the same thing. That makes a bit more sense.
That breakdown makes perfect sense because it kind of resonates with how you've seen like Andy's men's club and men's clubs where it's less around men sat talking. It's probably more around them orientating around doing something together. Like the Andy's men's club do a lot around like the gardening and repair and maintenance of machinery and repairs. And I guess because there's that stimulation of the task is like exactly as you said, building a safe environment, which then men feel comfortable in that space to then start being a bit more open. So that makes perfect sense. And I guess a good segue for us to follow on from that then is, let's dive into a bit about yourself. What got you into really focusing in this field, whether it's a bit around your background and how it's helped you support not only yourself, but the people and clients that you've worked with in whether it's in their, like you say, performance-based athletes. How has it helped them?
Okay, so this is quite a global picture of how this is kind of unfolded, because it definitely wasn't my intention to set out with this. In fact, it was almost the polar opposite. So from my story perspective, so like basically from single digits years old, ADHD. And again, no disrespect to people or whatever, this is old school ADHD. I'm on the roof setting things on fire, ADHD. Right? So behavioral issues, essentially energy that couldn't be contained, and this caused quite a lot of problems within the family dynamic. I am a bit of an anomaly, and families struggled massively with understanding why, what's going on, was it a reflection on them, blah, 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 blah. So with a lot of this came a lot of confusion, and as I kind of progressed in high school and we make that sort of transition from almost like the parents or your family to your friends become your family, which is, and then there's this natural progression as we move up through our kind of journey, is what ended up happening is a lot of issues from earlier that weren't dealt with very well started presenting themselves. Major behavioral issues, major mood swings, isolation, and started getting involved in a lot of, like I said, with that isolation came a lot of dangerous and damaging behavior, which actually led to my detention in a secure facility. And very dysregulated, very disturbed, and again this kind of nervous system situation where it's super heightened. And very much felt a victim of circumstances, which actually had a knock-on effect to like my self-worth, because I was a very capable person in terms of numerous different things. Like I said, as a performance coach, I've always prided myself on understand how things work and exploring these different elements. And when you've got something like that holding you back, at the time, if I'm honest, in reflection, it wasn't safe for me to look at things like that. It wasn't safe for me to admit that I had to took a hit. So my soul almost warped my sense of coping to sort of lean on this is a strength, which built a little bit of almost like, I suppose, if I'm honest with you, like this sort of like grandiose sense of self that I had to build to protect myself from the fact that these things had went wrong with. That's the top bottom of it. This then led as well to finding myself in places of people of a similar nature, which led, in a sporting sense, it led me to gravitate more towards extreme-based sports that were dangerous, that were risky. And in life, a lot of this gravitated towards similar things, to be honest, just negative, sort of worked in elements of security, but wrapped up in organised crime, and as things started developing like this, and it got to the point where there was so much destruction that I was, I was like, do I want to be doing this? Is this like, how is this serving me? And I am making these choices. I am choosing to get involved with these things, even if it didn't feel like that. It always felt like I was sorting things out. The background of this, I was a competitive MMA fighter. So fought to a decent enough level. When Cage Warriors was a bit younger, I managed to get on then. Like I said, that's sort of where we progressed up to, spent some time in Thailand, learning these things, and again, sort of built an identity around this fighting, around this violence, around these. But it served me so well to do that, because one of the things was about proving these different elements to myself and other people. And, I remember being young, and the first time I walked into an MMA gym, right, and it was like, we're going to spar, and I was like, I'm going to have to smash this guy up. Like, there's no ifs or buts about it. Like, this guy's dangerous. I'm going to have to smash him up. And that's the attitude that I went in with. I was fighting for my life. It was a representation of what I was experiencing on the inside. I'd never even considered the fact for 1 second that the group of older guys would have ever wanted to take care of me and see me do well and help me do these things. And I remember I just ran out, tried to smash this guy's head in 100%. I got choked out so hard I ate ice cream for like 3 days, screamed at, shouted at. And they were like, you fucking dare come into this gym with disrespect like that. And it wasn't from a place of disrespect. I didn't know any other. I'd fought for myself my whole life. So why would this be any different? And all of that led to me not wanting to fight. I wanted to become an athlete. I was like, these guys are where it's at. Like, and I really started embracing the training and the nutrition. Then what I realized is via my nutrition in particular, and you'll be able to relate to this, that I could manage my mood a lot better.
Yeah.
Started controlling elements of my body chemistry a lot better. And I was like, all I had to do was get the athlete on board. And I was like, no, man, like, even if you want to eat sweets, and this is when I'm younger, you want to do these things, that's not the way forward. And then I was like, my mood is managing itself better, and I was like, I'm more in control, and with this more in control, I can make better decisions, and with better decisions, I was like, I can get more, and this is going to add to my. And this is how it started. And then I thought, no, if this is really good. I can control elements in my body, and I've always felt out of control. I felt vulnerable. I felt a victim of circumstance. And once that changed to the inside, I was like, no, man, I can control. I wonder how much I can control. So I started building elements and really looking into all these different things, which led to understanding the nervous system more, understanding functional medicine a little bit more, and started diving into like, what to what extent can I bring this? And again, then in the gym, really knuckling down, spending some time with world-class coaches in strength and conditioning, like, can I increase my speed? Can I increase my muscle mass? Can I increase bone density? Like what? And it turns out when I started looking at myself almost like this project, I was like, holy shit, like I'm in control of my entire life, of my existence, of everything. I can't wait to unpack every bit of this. Yeah. So done all this physically and started putting myself in situations where, like, again, I was leaning on some of these extreme sports, which I love and still do to this day, and I'm involved in every week. But it's not coming from a place now of I have to prove myself. I'm trying to gain some control by putting myself in extreme scenarios so I can just feel that nervous system. Now it's a celebration. I'm going to go and do this because I can. I'm going to learn a bit more about this. The attitude of which I approach it with is much, much different. So I don't have to do it, I get to do it, and that's a different place altogether. You'll see a lot of guys that have to go to the gym. If I don't go to the gym, where's that coming from, bro? Where's that coming? Well, no, I just need. Why do you need to? And there's a big difference between need and want. Gyms for mental health, gyms for mental health, and it absolutely is, but it's a surface level. What is driving that? Is it dysregulation of the nervous system? And if the nervous system is dysregulated, what caused that? Why do you keep choosing it? And I know that because one of the reasons that we choose this is because what we find safe is because it's familiar, and it's better the devil we know than the devil we don't. So that's the thing. So if I'm going to keep selecting this, but this is where it comes back to that sort of grind and hustle culture of when we've got people who are dysregulated, who are pushing themselves into gyms constantly, and again, I was this guy. I was this guy to the most extreme. Get up, boom, it's 5 a.m, straight in the ice bath. It's it's already like -3 degrees in winter. Jumping back out, shoveling food in my mouth, straight to the gym, massive lifts. Fuck whether I'm injured or not, or whether it's the right thing. No, I've got to get up. I've got to lift this. I said I would do this. And then the thing is, I'm posting on social media. The guys on social media, I wish I was just like Chris, screaming, go Chris, go Chris. This is speaking to someone with low self-worth.
Yeah.
He's speaking to someone who under the surface is very damaged and they've built their self-worth on this. So the thing is, I was burnt out of shit, right? I was struggling in so many different areas of my life that I wouldn't look at it because this is the area that I got praised for whilst everything else collapsed. It wasn't until those things really started showing in my life and things started falling apart that I was like, I've got to deal with these now, which meant putting the gym down a little bit, which I felt horrific guilt for because I felt like I was betraying myself, it's ridiculous really, because how can looking after your family and setting yourself up for your future and ensuring that you're taking accountability and responsibility in all these different areas be a betrayal of self? I'm already, like my lifts were like my deadlift and squat. Like I ended up competing in powerlifting, triple body weight deadlift, triple body weight squat. Like you're in the top percentile on the planet, and I feel like I'm betraying myself by not turning up to squat that day. That's not right, man. Again, it's something that we're sold on, and I wouldn't want to see any of my clients, I wouldn't want to see any of my friends or anyone that I cared at all about to be making those selections over things like children and future investments and safety for everybody else. No one cares, bro. You've got yourself caught up in this, and it's about accountability and taking responsibility to investigate what is it. First of all, the way this works is like, first element is conscious, become conscious. Is, it's that kind of, am I? Like that, am I? Is that happening? Yeah. And then kind of next stage is awareness, and then going, this is happening. I am neglecting myself. And it's not like, no, you're not. And I'm like, oh, like where's that voice coming from? Who's fighting with this? These are facts on paper. Where's that coming from? And that leads to understanding. So it's conscious, become conscious, gain awareness. And this is valid. It needs explored, understanding. I need to understand this, what is going on. And then from that perspective, I started building out almost like a blueprint of my internal world. I was like, I need to understand that because this is causing damage. And damage causes poor performance. And I want to be the best all-round performer I possibly can, so I can explore as much as this reality of this world as humanly possible and have the best experience to gain. That's what we're here for. We're here to have this human experience and enjoy it to its fullest. If I don't have my health, if I'm dysregulated, if my perception is warped, if I'm weighed down by all these things, that's not going to happen. I'm going to perform at a lesser level. And, like I said, I'm kind of one of these people where I don't really believe in doing bad reps. You're better off doing no reps than bad reps.
Yeah.
That's the truth. So, in my experience as a performance coach, like what I say is, people think, and I used to be this guy, and a lot of fighters, this is why I work with a lot of fighters, people in combat sports, because often people of similar nervous system disposition and similar mindset and similar background gravitate towards certain sports or expressions of this. It's not good or bad, it's just a thing. So we can kind of put things in archetypes, which is why those people who fall into my archetype, I can help very well because I've been through this path. And it's not easy either, because looking at these things can be very difficult, but I'm pleased that I did, because ultimately, do I want to be the best I can, or do I want to feel like I'm doing the best I can? I want the result. And this is the thing a lot of the time with through volume, whether it be at nutrition or training or whatever. The more I do this,
Yeah.
Intensity and specificity are what gain results. We don't have to be in the gym. Like I said, when I was sort of like pro athlete, I was training 13 times a week. Now that's excessive, but it's my only job. That is my only job to do. And how I would do that often is I would do it over, in the end with efficiency, I would do this over 4 days. So I would only train 4 days a week, but I would train 3 times a day.
Yeah.
And again, it was specific, these things were specific. So I had 3 days worth of rest and recovery, which I would pick up other pieces of work to fund the training as well, So that is strategy, but that's not necessary for someone. That isn't, that's not necessary for that's. You can't go on like that indefinitely. These things have to have a mesocycle. I'll do this for 6 to 10 weeks. Then we need to come off the gas, reevaluate, restructure, because regardless of whether my intentions or goals have been achieved, my environment has changed. 10 weeks has passed in space-time, right? Something has changed, So I said these things need to be evaluated often. And sure, like, yourself, like me, this is why the check-ins are so important. I don't need to check in. I'm like, the thing is that accountability, we also need other eyes on us, because it's so easy to get swept up in the mind, even when you do know what's going on. And you've got to build and develop the tools within the brain so that you can explore this properly. Then you can assess yourself better. And you'll still not do, this is something where we need external observation. And often, a lot of the time, the people in our network, they haven't got the best vision. And this is why I think, grounded coaches who bring that experience to the table, who've got the best interest, and they're very clear on what we're trying to achieve, that when people come in, we are there for that specific reason, to ensure that you are achieving what you've set out to achieve. That doesn't necessarily need to be numbers or that percentage. Or again, when you come into my service, for example, we're looking at the full bracket. What do you want to achieve? People go, I'm not here for this. Okay, you're not here for this, but it's still relevant. You must know what you need in each area to go and achieve in one in particular, because it requires balance. Otherwise, that will sabotage everything that we're working towards. And I'm like, we need to get rid of, or at least put in the spotlight, all the saboteurs that are potentially going to come on the table. Like, we want to get the barriers. If I'm going on this journey, I'm like, first of all, we need to check the core, right? And this is the functional health, the neurological assessments, the really gaining context around the person. What are we traveling in here? Because if you're thinking you're going to go through the end of Afghanistan, like that's going to be your route at the top of the mountain, I'm like, you better be equipped for that, or we better be building that equipment en route. We better be going to the next checkpoint and making sure that we build those skills on that core, so to speak, because what's required at the top of that mountain, we are not equipped for this. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a goal. You'd already have what you set out to achieve. So part of the getting the result is the process, and falling in love with that. I'm building myself. I can see the results. And a lot of people are packing into the gym. They're not seeing results. They feel like they're getting results. They're not actually getting results. And if they are, sometimes it's at a massive consequence. Like I said, I say this with love and care, because I want people to succeed, because I would never have listened to the words that I'm speaking now if someone had spoken to me. I was too arrogant. But remember, that arrogance came from a defense pattern, a defense mechanism in here. I couldn't, I went full circle now. So, but essentially, I would have felt too weak to admit that It would have been too much of an attack on my ego because, and it's not that I hate that version of myself. That ego, that version of myself was necessary for me to survive what I was experiencing in here, the dysregulation, the trauma that I hadn't processed properly. That was my coping mechanism. And I was built to defend anything against that. Like I said, until I spoke to the athlete, I got on board the coach. You know, like we came together as a full entity and went, look, you know, like, what do we really want here? What results can I get here? We need to build the right map, get the right compass, and travel in the right vehicle. And if we haven't got any of those things, that's fine. But it's our job to play detective to find out what areas we need to go into, what skills we need, what knowledge we need to do this. And like I said, as coaches, that's what we do as best as we can. And again, not everyone needs to be an expert in every area, but I would go off and I would go, I'm going to go and learn off this guy. I'm going to go and learn off this guy. You know, me and Tom were on a neurology seminar. I'm going to go and learn off this guy. Why? Because neurology is the base of everything. You know, the brain and nervous system, everything starts there. You know, if I want to scratch my head, I want to have this conversation, it starts with the brain. That's not where my expertise has been. However, I've investigated a very interesting nervous system that's developed the way it has because of numerous traumatic events and things like this, where I'm like, rather than say it's a weakness or a strength, and I used to say it's a strength and I saw it as a weakness, and actually it's just a thing. Okay, that's my version of this. Cool. How do I play this hand that I've got to my best advantage? How can I maybe change the hand as different things come up and present with different tasks? And I like this puzzle. That's what I like doing. And I like doing this for other people. So to understand that full picture, so then we can kind of equip people with bespokenness. But again, it's them who are going to change it. I'm not going to change it. But we can explore it in ways like this that bring about real in-depth look. Like I said, you know, this is kind of a whole picture. And then we can dive into the mind a little bit more of how we maybe navigate this internal space. Because everyone's got a different story for sure. Everyone's got a different personality, but what I look for is commonality. How can we put things into certain boxes to kind of go? This is what I've sort of done. I've sort of built a blueprint, multi-layered blueprint, where I lay the person. I go, look at my blueprint. Throw your story in there and see what boxes you can kind of fit in and fit out. I'm like, then we've got a base, and I go, look, this is. And what people start to find people go, I'm a bit like that. I think a bit like that. I hear this. This happens at that time for me. And I'm like, we're not that dissimilar. Like how we work, like the actual mechanisms inside, like how the ego functions. And I don't mean like someone being egotistical. I mean the ego is a specific design, and it's one of the most difficult things that makes us human. Because it almost serves us the best for safety and protection. But often we want the truth, but we're not ready for the truth, and that's what it is. You know, it's an internal safety mechanism that warps our perception. Life would be very simple without the ego, but life would be very difficult because the job of the ego is to stop us feeling that self-destruction that comes from the experiences that we have. So how do we organize that? How do we recognize that? Like, how does that show up in day-to-day life? Well, that's what this structure is, and it just shows us how to process that so that I can monitor myself better and investigate. And like I said, it's not about being good or bad. A lot of people, like, do you think I'm good? I don't think anything. I don't think, like, it's not to be looked at like that. Like I said, the sort of the program that I teach in relation to this particular, the whole point is when I get people on board, you are not you. We're playing detective. And I'm like, we're not taking anything personally. The job is to collect data. Whatever data we can collect the best, that's where the reward is. So people start finding the reward of, I found this. Nice. It's traumatic. And I'm like, nice. And they're like, no, it's traumatic. And I'm like, absolutely. And we'll show you how to deal with trauma in the next section. You know, we'll understand it once we can understand how has that happened. I know, but I feel terrible. Yeah, well, you will, because the trauma affects the nervous system. It is a nervous system issue. Oh. And I'm like, great job. Like, you've actually found something really, really worthwhile. You know, in its gym equivalent, it might be like, I've tried this exercise. I've had shoulder pain. I've tried this exercise. Not only am I lifting more, I'm moving better, and the pain's went away. And I'm like, that's the one for you, at least for this period. You know, I'm not going to marry that for life. That's the only exercise I'll do for the rest of my life. No. You know, we'll use it until the body adapts and the fascia changes. And it's exactly the same. So this is what I'm saying. This work, it's like the gym for the brain. Like I said, the way I explain with my stuff, right? So you've got like people go and do workouts. This is work-ins. It's the same approach. We need a program. We need to understand what's my body like. You know, like you go to the gym. Right, this is best for you. You squat like this. Hang on, like his femur is twice the length of his femur. You know, like also he's got an ankle issue that where he did, just do the squats. Where he's saying it turns his back. He just needs to do the squats. And I'm like, well, you could do a different squat. You know, you could do like belt squat. You could do like, you know, like move them around whatever, you know, pick whatever squat that you want. Not everything's right for the right body. Not every approach is right for the right body. And that's what I'm saying. But we want a squat pattern in there. What specificity of squat we use is dependent on the person. Same deal. I want you to look at this. But how you go about it depends very much so on how you process, how you feel, how you learn, what you think. It's the same construct, but we go in, not out. And you build that power just as strong, if not more so, than the stuff from the gym. This is where I started making these connections, and then became obsessed. I became more obsessed with work-ins than workouts, and I was like, this is crazy, because I've always got a gym in here. That's one of the problems, though, like that we've always got access to this at any time. So you can't overdo it as well, you know.
I did actually love that statement of you've got the workouts and the work-ins, because I think that is a massive statement that everyone does focus on the workouts. Very few do the work-ins, and I think from a perspective that's huge, and I think that'll resonate with a lot of people. And a few things you mentioned about why you train and got into training was exactly, it resonated with me. Mine was the same. I got into my training originally to change the way I look, because I like body dysmorphia as a kid, pretty bad. And that's why I got into my training. It was a locus of control of something I could actually go and change. And then realised that I got into my training just because I love the fact that it was more performance-based. That's what got me into, like, the same as you, I got into my combat sports. And realising, to me, feeling like a pretty fragile kid that I wasn't made of glass was incredibly liberating. And it was like that. It was, I describe it to people as the best high of a drug I ever had was competing and winning, because it was like, fucking hell, wow, you know, I've just gone and done something I thought I'd never be able to do, and it was that addictive, like wanting it again, thinking that was the best, most freeing experience of my life. And realistically, it was just one of many that I could probably choose, but at that moment you chase it. And one thing you touched on was, and there's a really interesting concept by Ross Edgley, who's, people probably know who he is, phenomenal athlete, like swam around the UK non-stop and done some wild things in his lifetime. But he said, when you touched on your desire for extreme sports, Ross actually knows it as a term. I'm not sure if you heard of it. I'd love to know if you have. But it dates back to the Spartan era, and it was called Eustimonia. And they chased basically a state of eustress, which was they thrived on stress. They thrived on the need to go out and do, like you say, train to be a warrior, put children through unreal feats that kids nowadays would probably never stand a chance of trying.
I'm familiar with that part of it,
Yeah, and that's kind of their methodology. But your story, obviously, Chris, was one of the most impactful stories that you've shared that I've had on this channel. So that was amazing, by the way. It was great to listen to it. Let's dive more into, obviously, the unpacking side. So when you're working with people, and what are some of the biggest revelations or kind of, you know, that you could call like euphoria moments when you give people this different approach to coaching, and how have you seen it benefit, guys that are in such a high drive sport, such as a professional fighters in combat sports, have you seen it's completely, even though they're not necessarily doing the working out with the working in, but have you seen how the working in has massively helped the working out?
Yes, even if it's just a case of, like I said, regulation.
Mm.
So let me touch back on just one point that you made there with the sport and the thing. I love that. I love what you were saying. And again, even when you were speaking, like, I was like, yeah. And please, anyone listening to this, I don't want you to get this wrong, right? Like I said, skydiver, base jumper, free diver, like I'm in the thick of it, right? In relation to this. So I love it. I'm not, under no circumstance am I saying, and this is what people get, they get to think, oh, it's like hippy dippy. And I'm like, no, connecting inwards is not hippy dippy. You know, like, yes, I do elements of this deep connection, but I do this connection so that I can do and perform things like that from self-expression and enjoy and maximize my life, not do it thinking, oh God, I hope I get this many likes on Instagram and I hope someone follows this and it was good crap. You know, like these sport things like that is where he's saying, like, you know, I watched one of my friends die, you know, like in front of me in accidents like this. And it's at them times where, like, you really do connect in and you think, you know, what am I doing? You know, what am I doing? What were we doing? Like, them deep moments of, I'm not just dismissing that. And some people do dismiss, I just don't want to think about that because it could have been me. But no, I did the opposite. I had the skills I wasn't traumatized by that traumatic event because I sat with it and I was like, man, like I really went through it. It's like, you know, I really need to make sure I am expressing these things. And the thing is that thriving on stress, I love it. But what I want to bring to the attention of people, we're not supposed to live there. This is the thing, right? People go, oh, you're trying to calm people down. I am trying to give people the skill of being able to shift the state to whatever state is optimal for them. If that is bedtime and nighttime, yes, I would like you -10 out of 10, right? Because I want you down-regulated so that you are absorbing nutrients. Your kidney system is filtrating itself. We are regenerating tissue, yeah? If you are wanting to be a warrior, you want to be a machine, fantastic, but you need the harder and higher the dynamics that you can push to, you must be able to recover just as hard. And this is I've been shouting this at some of my guys, right? Rest is not recovery. I'm not asking you to rest. I am asking you to recover. If we're not training our body, we can be training our mind. If we're not training our mind, we can be training our body. We can also train both. We can also learn, educate ourselves. There's numerous different ways that we could be doing these things. It's not just, I'm telling you to take time off the gym. I'm telling you to switch focus to something else so that you can enhance your performance when you come back to working out. The goal has not changed. This is not a soft approach. This is discipline. Build other areas. The other areas are just as important as skills that you need and require to move forward. And the more that you learn, the faster you can get forward and the higher you can climb. That's what I'm saying. And like I was saying there, it isn't a case of going like, I have to live stressed. I used to live ultra stressed. And guess what? I couldn't build muscle for shit.
Yeah.
Right? Because I'm burning through calories. My nervous system is on fire. This is not recovering. My organ function wasn't optimal. This was showing in blood work. It was showing all over the place. My brain is tired. There's waste product from my brain not being drained. I'm not hydrated properly. Yeah. This is poor performance. However you want to dress that up in a positive way, that's poor performance. Okay, so what I'm saying is, with this sort of Spartan attitude, fantastic. I want everyone who I work with to do rip walls down, destroy the entire world if necessary. But I don't want you to live there. Yeah. That's what we're training for in case it goes live or in case we decide to go into a challenge, test ourselves. We shouldn't be testing ourselves all the time. Otherwise, you won't be able to perform at the highest level. The best fighters on the planet don't fight every week. Yeah. But you will see the journeyman in gyms fighting every week. And half the time, you know, they're getting knocked out, they're getting this. This is what I'm saying, and this happens by focusing on the short, immediate, what am I emotionally feeling? Not how am I going to structure this to achieve something? So sorry for going off on a tangent. I just think that's super important that we look at this. Now, Thomas, you asked me about the most impactful stuff that I see when we apply this. In all honesty, if I'm working with lads like us, so to speak, that is how I am delivering it. I'm going to deliver it from the performance thing because I know I'm going to get in. The rest of it will unfold and you'll experience the benefit and brilliance of that. However, I'm not deceitful with it because I like to tell people this up front. But I'll tell them a little bit about my story, my approach like this, and they go, that makes a lot of sense. Again, strong masculine energy, where we're going, direction, reason, understanding, logic, everything he's saying makes sense. Yes. So what's actually happening a lot of the time is, why aren't you executing on that? What energy must we be in? Okay, which might be, we have to shift in feminine-based energy, in which feminine energy feminine energy is responsible for holding emotions. Can you hold those emotions? No, I avoid them and hide from them. That's a good clue. Maybe we should look at some of those aspects. Did we grow up in a world where, like you were saying, it looks soft to explore these things? Yes. If I acknowledge emotion, is that soft? Yes. But it's not. It's actually strength. Yeah. Why would you want to have poor direction? I want to be able to assess myself properly. If I have to shift across to that energy to explore, feel, even if it feels like a shit or it's terrifying, that's my job. If I require higher performance, if I really want this, there isn't a price that's too high. I will go and explore this. And that's what I did. And it was purely almost out of spite like this, rather than kind of, when I'm going to sit with softness, I was like, you must combat these demons must be faced. You must understand what is going on and the structure of it if you want to achieve what you are telling me you want to achieve. And I had to listen to the coach within myself. And I had to get the braveness from the athlete within myself to go, this is for the other versions of myself that might have been abandoned inside, like the inner child, like different aspects of these things. And go, if that is the case, I'm going to provide support. I'm going to learn where it's necessary to learn. I'm going to take a knee where it's necessary to take a knee. I'm going to refuel. I'm going to get out of toxic environments, toxic relationships, toxic whatever. And this is self-honor. That's true self-honor, is whatever it takes for me to be the best version of me, I am prepared to do. And that is a lot of what this navigation around this sort of mental health thing is. Right? Like I said, I don't like the word mental health. So I was in the mental health system for God knows how long. It didn't do shit. The conventional system, again, we're treating symptoms, not causes. Yeah. And again, we're relying on someone else to fix us. I do not fix people. I help people navigate the ground so that they can save themselves. How can I save you in this world? It doesn't work like that. And nor would I want to. And this is a lot of the time, it's that, well, someone should help me. We'll see this in the conventional medicine system. Well, hopefully the doctor is going to help. Hopefully. Yeah. Take accountability and responsibility for your better. Yeah. And the same for your mind. And I know might sound quite harsh, but I am one person you can't turn around. You wouldn't say that if you, again, numerous detentions in secure psychiatric facilities. I was one of the most expensive young people to hold in the UK at one point. Yeah. Like I said, we're not here to unpack all of that. But this is coming from a position of someone who has been on the other side of this. I'm not just shouting shit at people. Yeah. This isn't tough love. I am speaking to you as partly a detective. Yeah. These are the findings I am coming back to you with, and I am happy to reference anything and show you the reasoning behind that. I can lead you back through the maze and show you how I got in, what happened, where it went, and why. And like I said, what I did is, after I'd done this for a few years with myself, I ran this with a trial group of about 10 people who I'd coached, and the results were outstanding. And annoyingly, out of all the people that I ran this with, I got the worst result. So I was like, but again, I had to do that egotistically, and I was like, I had to start looking at that, but this was really good, and people started going. Then again, people started helping their children, their family members. They started organising themselves a bit better, and this kind of almost positive infection happened across the board. And I was like, the more people who understand and know this will spread wildfire. Because once you've seen it, you can't unsee what you've seen. So that impact is not, I would say the most impactful thing is more the fact that people went on to impact much of their network just by holding that energy difference, being aware of what some new shit basically. So the amplification, I suppose, of the results was more shocking than the results themselves.
Yeah. It's incredibly impactful, obviously, the statements that you're making. And one thing that I'd love to touch on is the fact that it kind of drives home for me that sometimes, as you mentioned, there's two things that you mentioned that I'm going to touch on. That I personally view your insight and experience worth more than someone with a degree in the area, but that hasn't had the lived experience and the insight such as you've had, because that is the best teacher, and you're now using it as your gift for what you went through and experienced to actually help and support other people, because it's relatable. It's not someone sat down talking at you, it's someone talking with you. And I think that is probably one of the most impactful things you can be. And then leading on to that, you'll know this statement, and I know it: the best coaches in the world are coachable. And they're not dogmatic, they don't stay fixed in a lane, and they don't die on a certain hill of, this is the only way, nothing else matters. That's probably what has made you such a well-rounded coach, in the aspect of all these doors. Like, the way I'm viewing it as you're talking, interpreting it to me, is you're enabling people to open up shut doors in their mind that they have shut, but those doors could open to a different new world of opportunity and performance and a higher vibrational presence in the world that most people don't realise is there, because they don't ever want to open them doors. Because if you say men may fear the feminine energy, but in truth it's that yin and yang, it's that principle of being complete, that both kind of like a harmony together, that if you utilise and leverage, can actually be incredibly powerful. So it really does kind of drive home that message to people that if there are things that are stuck and, you're kind of burying your head in the sand or not wanting to address, imagine what the potential is that you're leaving on the table. Imagine the pieces of the puzzle that you're missing that could actually finish off what you're looking at. And
it's obscene, Tom. It's obscene. Like this is the thing, is, and this seems to be what it is. It's like when that penny drops.
Yeah.
And this is what happened with me. I was like, I need to do this to regulate my nervous system. So I'm not, my nervous system, it's expressing very well. When it's stuck, I can't recover. If I could recover, I could do more. It went from that to exactly what you're saying, where, like, I found myself in like Dahab in Egypt, like sitting on a line at 30 meters underwater, like sitting exploring as my body was panicking, kind of the voice in my head going, just stay here. And it's like, we're going to die. And I was like, like I said, as a detective, I'm being told I'm going to die, but I know my body's probably got 96% oxygen, and there is someone to rescue there. And it's like experiencing, it's things like that, where like that approach, I'm not reacting, I am responding.
Yeah.
So that when I come back up and I'm thinking, yeah, I probably did push too far, I was nearly pulled out of rescue, less. But then you can kind of go, like I said, that what is the attitude? What's the intention I'm approaching it with? I need to prove that I can. No. Like I'm investigating me. I'm finding out about me. And again, it's like, well, why was I even there in the first place? I was there in the first place because my nervous system was so burnt out that I couldn't express it anymore. And I knew free diving was something that I wanted to explore. And I knew the person who was going to be the most dysregulated would be the shittest. And I knew I would hate being the shittest. So I put myself in that situation to force myself to learn how to downregulate, control my diaphragm. And guess what I did guess what I brought back to the fight camp when I came back with some of the fighters in the gym? Watch how fast we can downregulate, upregulate oxygen intake, this in between rounds, we can really enhance and lean hard on this.
Mm-hmm.
And people were like, nah, it sounds complicated. And I was like, okay, like, I'm just a bit excited. I'm going to show you how to manipulate the diaphragm and do different things so you can take more oxygen in, you'll be less tired in between rounds. And when his head goes down, like, you're going to bury this kid when you come out next round. I'm just, okay.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, you know, if you do that a little bit more before night time, you know, your organs will be a bit more replenished. And if you drink this and just add this and have this, that will really serve you well as you sleep. Will it? That's not a big effort. No, it's not. Maybe do that.
Yeah.
I feel a bit worn out. Well, okay, like, you know, then this people start going, yeah, man, like this is a bit, and I'm like, yeah. Like, you know, people go, these are like the 1%, and I'm like, they're not. They're much more than 1%. And also, when I'm not obsessed with this, and I start getting, it's like the intrigue into like, well, what else could I do? Because a lot of the time we gravitate towards things like fighting, for example, because that's all I was. You know, at one point in my head, that's all I was good for. Let's go in, fuck shit up, go mad, and wherever that was needed or required, it made sense to gravitate towards that. And then I was like, you know, I wonder what I could do. And I've ended up in all sorts of areas. Like I said, like, I'm going to go and explore this. I specifically take on tasks that I'm like, I have no idea what I'm going in for now. Like, for example, like, I've never danced in my life. I've not been one of these people who jump into clubs and they're dancing and all of it, all the rest of it, right? In the start of the year, because what I found from, like, when we was talking about rest, like creative rest and creative expression, I got very far with a lot of my internal work, because what I found was bringing that creativity back from being maybe little and sort of messing around with bits. It seems to distract my subconscious while upregulating the right hemisphere, like the creative side of my brain, which in neural testing has shown to be low. So now that I've brought this regulation up, and I'm doing something creative, and I'm connecting with an inner child, and so you know, I benefit from off the back of that. I'm like, that's, again, when we were talking earlier, it's efficiency. I'm killing multiple birds with one stone. This is really good. And as my conscious brain is focused on whatever the task it is that I'm doing, a lot of the time my subconscious, I didn't realize, but it's coming up, so I can see what's in the subconscious, and I can do a little bit of work and just, oh, that shit's coming up. Man, don't think about that like that. Like, think about what we've got. And I can start wiring that subconscious. Now, a subconscious is 95% the same every single day. So if you think how long it takes us to get through, if we're paying 95 a movie every single day, that's 95% the same. Think how long it takes in order to be watching a different movie. And that is it. All aspects are being worked on all the time to create that transition. That's a long period of time. If I can affect that movie more than 5%, because I'm sitting doing some work and I'm going, no, that's not quite right. You know, then horrible feelings come up. Or I get like, you know, the way this works, it's kind of like normally a thought is charged by a feeling. So a thought will come in and I feel a certain way about it based on who I am or who I think I am, my identity. So let's just say what we're talking about earlier, right? Like, let's say a feminine-based thought, yeah? Like something that would go, it's a bit soft. And, right, what do you think about that thought? Like, that might mean we're soft and we dismiss it or we get rid of it. Well, that might come up. Well, what's that coming up for? Well, you might, feel all these same things and I go, who's saying that? Who decided that? And the detective steps in. I don't step in, the detective steps in. Can you just provide some evidence to show us that makes you soft? Because that's quite, you've reacted quite heavily then. And I'm like, yeah. Well, no, we're not really. So I'm not going to investigate it further. We're talking about emotions. Yeah. We're talking about emotions right now. This isn't feeling like a feminine conversation. If anything, we've talked about Spartans, going to war, all sorts of shit, right? And I'm like, well, that might be distorted. No, it's not. Like, that's not the sort of person that we are. But you're saying that based off no evidence.
Yeah.
Evidence. Yeah, but I feel that way. We don't do feelings, we do results. Because we're performance. And I'm like, do we need to get anyone else in to have it? And then it's kind of that, oh, yeah, so it might be all right to explore that. Not all right, it's fucking necessary to explore that. Because now we might be living from a different paradigm that isn't true. And how safe is that for the nervous system? Not safe. That is a primal wired thing. And then I'm going, if I know I'm living from a lie, my nervous system will be dysregulated because I'm not safe. I'm living a fucking lie.
Yeah.
Shit. Because the thing is, other people aren't living that lie. They can see you living that lie. Whether they're bothered or they're interpreting it or not, it's not the point. If you think we are pack animals, we belong, we are in a herd. Yep. If the herd knows something that we don't, that is problematic. From a primal perspective, from reptilian brain, we are at risk of exile or death. The nervous system is not going to like this, and we're going to start pandering to other people's needs. We're going to start all these manipulative behaviors to try and gain acceptance into this crowd based off a fucking lie. I need to know what's going on. That's how I approach things now. Stuff comes up, especially uncomfortable stuff. I'm like, who said that? What's going on? I want to know more about this. Yeah. And I evidence. And often I will try, part of me will try and throw evidence, and I'm like, you've got a really good point, and you obviously feel a certain way that maybe came from damage, which is fine. You don't want me to explore that. That's why you're telling lies. And I'm like, I won't explore that. That's fine. But do not tell me lies. I've programmed lies in my nervous system and took them as fact. I did not. You've got to think the age that they came into my nervous system. I could have been 5. I could have been 7. I could have been 9. Do I trust my 5-year-old self to be making decisions for my 39-year-old high-performance self? I love that little guy, but he doesn't drive the car, because if I put in a child in a car to drive and he crashes, how's he going to feel about that? How much damage is that going to impact my deep self? He's not prepared. He doesn't have the skills to do that. I must drive the car, but I'm more than happy for him to be there and to enjoy the ride, to have his little input as he moves. But I'm not basing everything off his version and interpretation of what happened. Same with a teenager. And this is one of the main things. Is sort of in a teenager where a lot of trauma happened for me. Put him in the car, he's going to run people over, he's going to run stop signs, not going to care. And again, he's expressing himself, and half the time I agree with him. Everyone is a dickhead. You probably are right. Like people have done to, people are disrespectful, whatever. Yeah. People deserve, the harsh end of the stick. And I'm like, yes, however, that doesn't make us very good at networking when we behave like that. Also, it hypes the nervous system up, and we get stuck in fight or flight, in which I can't absorb nutrients well. This impacts us on an athletic level. I go to the teenager. Do you want to be that guy, or do you want to have a great body? Do you want to perform well? Just for the sake of you down-regulate and taking a few breaths and not having an emotional meltdown. Yeah, fair enough. That teenager will do that swap, and he did. You just got to keep eyes on him, like you do a teenager. You're good, mate. Run around, add to the party, but sometimes going after interviews, like, don't mind you having a turn in the car. You're not directing us where you want to. Otherwise, you're going to end up in the shit again. Yeah. Now, the thing is, sometimes it takes a lot of journeys, let's say, to get out of that loop of behaviour. But again, we can end up sitting in a victim-based mentality, and that's not an attack. You're the victim. That's not what I'm saying. Many people listening to this will have been badly hurt on the worst side of things, and that is no joke. And that's the thing. We do make, as lads, no, man, heart, serious. A lot of us have sat in real shit, man. Sat in the dark, it's not about not sitting in the dark. I think when it comes man, it's about that. Sometimes we need to break space, and instead of making wisecracks, which is all fine, it's good and well, but there's a time when it doesn't matter who's a man, who's a woman, whatever. Look, we're all humans having a fucking hard time, and this is a hard environment. And sometimes we just need to sit up and go like, I'm not even trying to help. I'm witnessing you as a human having a hard human experience at this point. and I know how that feels. And like, I'm just going to sit beside you, just so you know I'm there.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need to do anything. I don't need to fix it. I don't need to sit quietly. I'm just going, mate. Like, sometimes I think just someone going, I also, feel hard being a human too. Like, and you're going to be okay. Like, right? Just that presence, man, is enough often from good, when it's good energy, good intentions, and unfortunately, a lot of people are scared to even sit there with me.
Yeah.
And I do my best. Like, I've got friends the same who one of my things is I'll try and save you. I've got, come from this trauma is registered as a hero complex, likely why I'm a coach. I'm going to help you. Okay. But again, when I started coaching, I was the one that needed help.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm going to help people. So, and we'll get some people as well who, when someone's taking a moment to be serious and draw something down, you'll get the guys who have to put a wisecrack in, like not necessarily nasty, but they'll have to crack a joke, and that's them trying to break. That's them showing their behaviour that they used when they were younger. Like, I'm uncomfortable, so I'll have to make a joke of it because we all know how to deal with a joke. And that's not saying, because people might go, well, yeah, but it's good to bring a laugh and change the energy. And I'm like, yeah, but it's avoidance. That's not where this person's at. I'm going to meet you where you're at.
Yeah.
And if you're in the bin, I'll come and sit in the bin with you.
Yeah.
Because I've been there. I don't need to do anything. I'm just saying, like, I'm happy to sit in the bin, man. And like, when we're high and we're laughing and we're running and we're going mad, I'll walk there with you too, man. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, and that's the thing, is just going, sometimes we're up, sometimes we're down, and I don't need to change anyone or change anything. I need to get out of this state. Why?
Yeah.
Like, there's loads of information down here. Like I said, I'm one of these where, like, the darkness always rewards those who are brave enough to play. And sometimes for the darkness, the idea is not get out. It's just to sit until it clears and take as much information, and that will help you in the long run not end up in the dark again. Like, or at least when it does come, because we can't stop the dark, man. Like, people are going to die, we're going to have tragic events, we're going to have loss. This is part of the experience. When it comes, when you feel like that on the inside and your nervous system doesn't fire off like a lunatic and, I have to feel this horrible, I need to get out of this, I need to pause this, you're in a very powerful position. And the thing is, that's where leaders are created, because it's other people will look to you for that grounding, that guidance, not necessarily in words, but in energy. When you can hold that, that's a really good place to be, man. Like I said, even if everything else is falling apart, like, the majority of the time, I know I hold that place in my circle, and like, it's took a lot of work to get there, but that's a strong place to be. And when everyone else is relaxed, because their nervous system's looking for an anchor, and you are that anchor at that time. Other people function much better, and even if I don't have all the answers, which I don't claim to, together as a collective, it's much easier to work our way through and out of those situations.
It's incredibly true. Everything you've just reeled off there was, I think a lot of people would need to hear that. Just to sit down with that segment and listen to it, because it's so true. And things that I see in a couple of touch points here, I think social media's done a great job at giving people more noise, but less space to actually do that internal work. They want to chase biohacks, like you've mentioned. They want an ice bath every day. They want to now go out and do infinite number of high roxes in a day, or a stupid long run every day. And sometimes it's just more fuel to the fire when they think they're being productive, when realistically they're just procrastinating with avoidance, essentially, as to what they actually need is a big thing. And that your insight and wisdom is actually the best teacher and gift to somebody, that is, you can go back and you can give someone them tools at such an earlier stage in life that's going to help them to give the best outcome or for their potential because you've been able to not say necessarily have an intervention, but be able to be in a space whereby, and I think this is a powerful thing, that most people fear probably what you're doing and saying because it is against the social norms, and people want to confide to what safety is. And safety in the social construct is, oh, well, everyone's going to think I'm weird for doing this. So everyone's going to, so I best avoid it. I best not do it. I best, like you say, stay with the crowd because there's a feeling of safety. But instead of wanting to be the outlier that goes, actually, if the crowd's walking in the wrong direction, why do I want to be part of the crowd? There's nothing safe about people going in the wrong direction. It's all about where your path is actually wanting to take you. That's what most people now get distracted by, is the fear of judgment of others. But you'll know this, and I know this. The minute you stop not necessarily living to other people's standards and expectations, is the actual when you start to truly level up your own self-worth and your own value to what you can do and achieve.
That's it. I mean, we can get into that at a much deeper level, which I think it might be a bit too deep for today. But one of the things we've got as well is sometimes how that can be taken, and I am constantly at battle with my own self in relation to this, is that we see this, and everyone likes to think that they're the person to go against the crowd. But in what regard? Like what's the popular narrative at the minute? I don't want to get too much into the government situation. I'm going against the crowd. I'm like, actually, the majority of the crowd are online, worldwide. The place is a shit show. Everything's atrocious. The organisation structure. So are you really the outlier? Am I saying that we then join them? No, what I'm saying is that sometimes the identification as the rebel is also escapism, and it's also a coping mechanism, like exactly what I told you earlier on that I had an issue with, which was this grandiose self-ego identity. There's nothing wrong with it, but that is a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
Is it serving us? If yes, that's fine. As long as you know that that's what's happening. And that's the thing, it's our understanding. People go, so do you look, I live like a monk all the time. But I know, like it's the same, let's take it back to the good old gym, right? Because the gym taught us everything, right? It's a representation on everything, right? Look, I have cheat meals. And when I have cheat meals, I don't go, well, I'm just going to, no, I go all out, right? I know some people go mental. I don't go mental. But I go, no. A time was allocated for me to take this off, right? Enjoy this. Watch whatever movie I want, get the popcorn, blah, 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 have that time bonding with whoever, whatever, even just myself. Experience that. And then again, through self-honour, through some structure, we come back out of that space, it served its purpose, and we move back forward. And again, if you're clever, you can use it to refuel. Do you know what I mean? Like I said, you can use the calories and stuff like this, even cause inflammation. But I'm like, I can replenish what I've been in deficit of, and that works with emotions as well. It works with identity as well, right? Yeah. This is what I'm saying. So sometimes, for example, with me, if I've got that voice, and we all know the voice, and I've done my little detective and I've investigated it, and let's just say it is the inner child, right? Inner child's distressed, blah, blah. I will go and take that child to go and see whatever he wants to see, buy him ice cream, blah, 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 blah. I don't go, right, but we've got to be on so many calories. I'm like, look, I know how to control myself. Like, I'll have another 300 calories. I'm happy to have some jellies. I know I'm not going to digest them well. I'm not going to do this. But you know what the higher requirement is? That voice. Because that's starting to really, it's starting to really not leave us alone. So I'll allow that sort of childish aspect of myself. I'll find people who are a little bit more childish. I'll go and spend time with them, jump around like a dick, do some, dance about or whatever, bang some tunes on. And I'm like, that time was allocated in honour of my younger self who didn't get to do that at a disco or whatever he's upset about, right? And whether I look like a knob or whatever, right? That's fine, because it doesn't matter, because I'm honouring my present self. Not just my past self. I'm honouring my present by understanding my needs. And like I said, how I look doing them or feel whatever, it's not a big deal. All right, the grown man, he's dancing with his friends or whatever, or, girlfriend, or saying watching the Lego movie, right, which is a common escape for the inner child, shit like this, whatever, and I've got sweets, or again, I've got my daughter, and I'll get my daughter, and I'll go, come on, we'll go and celebrate with them and be childish in public, so that people are like, what's he doing? Look, that's the whole point, isn't it? Like I said, we're celebrating that, and I'm liberating that part of myself that didn't get the liberation when I was younger, for whatever reason that might be. And what you'll find is that voice calms down, give it some space and some time, which means, like I said, if I've increased my calorie intake by 400, or I'm going to have to make up another training session, it's absolutely worth the swap. And someone who can zoom out and look at themselves like that, organize themselves and understand their needs, this person will go much further than the person who thinks they're a beast by not breaking anything whatsoever.
Yeah.
They feel two completely different things. And in the initial changeover, you will feel like you're cheating. You'll feel like betrayal. You'll feel, right, if you're anything like me, right? Whereas I was like, dedicated to the grind. Like my old business, my old gym was called Grind Hard Fitness. And I was like, it was a tough camp. You came into my doors, I was like, I'm running this show, man. Like, fuck shit up. No messing around. It was like, I train, I make weapons in this building, man. That's what I do. This isn't fat camp. Like I'm making killers in here.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing, and there's nothing wrong with that. What I didn't understand is some of these people would leave that gym, and then they would go and be mom, they'd go and be dad, they'd go and be whatever, and they were doing what I'm talking about now.
Yeah.
Naturally, I wasn't doing that. I committed to this, like almost like psychopathic, like relentless attitude. And what I found was the transition of going, I'm going to allocate a little bit of space for myself to act a bit childish or whatever. Like I said, the same goes whether it's the teenager, whatever version of myself needs to be expressed, right? Allocate a bit of time. And I was like, I felt guilt, shame, like, what are you doing? Now you're betraying your identity. It's confusing, and this feels unsafe. So we go, I don't want to do this. I should stay at what because it's familiar. It's not because it's right. It's because it's familiar. That feeling is familiarity.
Yeah.
Better than ever. We know we'll pick that. We'll choose that, and that is not helpful. This dysregulation is not serving you. Do I want you to go 10 out of 10 killing off? Yes, I do. Because it might be called upon, and it's cool. It's just who I am and what I represent.
Yeah.
But to have the capacity to do that to the degree, the people that you idolize and watch on TV who are doing this, you must get the other shit in order. Otherwise, your nervous system, without the regulation, without the rest, the vessel, the body, without the right nutrition. Because again, as you know, Tom, we'll have had this conversation so many times. It's not how much you eat; it's how much you absorb.
Yeah.
And even out of how much you absorb, it's out of how much you can methylate.
Yeah.
So pilot food, again, it's not all as simple as push the food in and ignore the rest. If I am stuck in fight or flight, I will not make adequate stomach acid. I will not be able to break down. I will not be able to absorb. I will not be able to take these to the organs and have this function at a cellular level that's going to optimize what we're doing. And this is what coaches like myself and Tom are trying to push. And I'm getting agitated because I feel like it falls on deaf ears, because the thing is, I'm losing business to hype men, essentially, right?
Yeah.
We're hyping people up, and I'm like, you're hyping fuckers up that are already hyped up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not saying don't be hyped up. I'm saying, is it what you need, or is it serving? Is this an emotional backstroke?
Yeah.
We've been. And this is the thing I'm saying. Like, you are potentially stroking your ego to the detriment of your progress.
Yeah.
I don't want to see that for you. It's not because I'm not hating on your coach. I'm not hating on you. Like I said, I've been through this loop. I've took numerous people through this loop, and I stand in this industry, in this loop, watching this madness.
Yeah.
Being like, there's much better information. I can get you further forward with much less work, much more specific, but you need to want to investigate yourself and how you work.
Yeah.
And I fucking love teaching that, and so do.
Completely agree, and I think that's a great thing we can cover in a future episode, because I think that is a massive topic in its own right. around like industry and like taboos and things that we do see, because we've seen the ins and outs of the good, the bad, and the ugly with the fitness industry, unfortunately. I think that'd be very interesting for people to listen to on another episode, because I'd love to have you back on, and I know you probably, if you've got the time, have you back on, because this has been an incredible episode. We've been going for 75 minutes, and I feel like we've gone. No, it's good. Like honestly, I'm so happy that we got into the depths that we did, because I do feel it's a topic that really needs airing out, needs a lot more exposure, it needs talking on, because it's going to resonate with so many people. And I think that them being able to sit down and watch this and just listen, they'll be able to appreciate how important this work potentially is, that they've potentially been avoiding or don't know they need, but it's going to resonate with them at a level where they go, I need this. And what we'll do, guys, I will drop Chris's Instagram handles and everything on the video and in the description below, so do go and give him a follow. And with that, Chris, I just want to thank you for taking the time to join us today on today's episode.
It's been thoroughly enjoyed catching up, Tom, as always, and like you were saying, such important points. And hopefully, like I said, I'm trying to be authentic. Number one, hopefully that comes across.
Absolutely.
Right, because number two, I think when we see people who are authentic and we're talking, I don't see a lot of people talking about, let's say, the mental health sphere from this perspective with the depth that I'm kind of going into, and I'm prepared to be far more vulnerable than this. It's just obviously we're covering different topics, not one thing specifically, because I know it does me good. And like I said, a lot of times when people see me do that, it makes them feel safer, because we're looking at it from an investigatory perspective, not a judgmental one. I don't give a fuck. I just want you to perform well. You need the information to do so. So this is the thing. Hopefully this adds like a different lens to it. Where I think if more conversations were like this, or again from a different perspective altogether, I'd like to see more guys talking about it from their own perspective, not through a conventional stance, not through look, be you, throw everything out there, and like that is helpful. It's helpful when people are prepared to go first. I'm not saying go and show you all your wounds to the internet. I don't think that's a good idea. Please, there's a difference between reckless behaviour and being a bit more courageous and pushing the boundaries. But I'd like to see a lot more of that, mate. And I'm completely on board with what you're saying. Not just from my perspective, but the more angles we see this through, the more we can explore. And again, lads talking like this, that's how we're going to do it. Not trying to put into a category or let's just get it out there. We can organise it later on. Let's see what's happening.
Absolutely.
So, completely agree. Thank you so much for having us on. You're doing a great job. Like I said, providing this for other people.
No, it's been an absolute pleasure, Chris. And again, thank you for joining. We'd love to have you on for a future episode. And with that, if anyone watches, has any questions, any topics you want covering, feel free to drop it in the comments below. And as I'll say, I'll drop Chris's social media handle on the page. Give him a follow, drop a message if anything's resonated with you. And with that, Chris, it's been an absolute pleasure to share this time with you. Look forward to having you on again in the future. And we'll catch you guys on the next episode.